If that Arsenal side is really the best team in Europe right now, then our title-winning Reds from last season must be the greatest side the game has ever seen. Going into this match, you would think we were about to get absolutely blown away, especially with how people were talking about the Gunners and how they were supposedly going to walk their way to the title. But once the final whistle went, you honestly start wondering if Van Dijk and Konate even broke a sweat. Never mind needing a shower after that. Now, before we get into any proper analysis, we had to get these two digs in at Arteta and his team. First of all, because the claims being made about them are simply not true, and secondly, because of that ugly moment involving Martinelli and Bradley late in the game. We understand it was a heated contest and that dropping points at home is frustrating, but when there is a player on the ground in clear pain with what could be a serious ACL injury, you do not try and shove him off of the pitch. That is just not on. So we fully expect an apology from the Brazilian and ideally from his manager as well. More than anything though, we just hope Connor has not suffered a serious injury because of that incident. With that now out of the way, let us actually break down what happened in this match and how our team, despite a fairly underwhelming first half, still managed to come away looking like the better side overall. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you are new, and let us jump straight into the video. So guys, we went into this game with no proper forwards available. Isak, as we all know, was sidelined with injury, and Hugo, who was a doubt going into this clash, ended up missing out on the squad altogether, as Arne Slot did not want to take any risks with his fitness. Because of that, we were basically playing without any natural attackers. Wirtz was used as a false 9, with Gakpo and Frimpong operating out wide as the wingers. In midfield, we lined up with Szoboszlai, Alexis McAllister and Ryan Gravenberch, while the back four consisted of Conor Bradley, Ibrahima Konate, Virgil van Dijk and Kerekes, all playing in front of Alisson in goal. On paper, it already felt like a very makeshift setup, especially going away to a side like Arsenal. So how did this game actually unfold? Well, in the first half, it's fair to say that Arsenal managed to push us back and keep us pinned inside our own half for large parts of the game. Yes, we had a few decent sequences of play here and there, but overall, as you can see from the first half passing maps, they were pretty much camped in our half and controlled where the game was being played. This was mainly down to the way we set up defensively. As you can see on the screen, we kept a +1 at the back. Bradley and Kerekes were tasked with marking Arsenal's wingers, while Van Dijk and Konate doubled up on Gyökeres whenever possible. Further up the pitch, we usually only had 2 players applying pressure on the ball, and across the rest of the pitch, we largely went man-to-man to limit their options. Here you can see our defensive shape even more clearly. Szoboszlai was quite hesitant to step out and press because his man, in this case Zubimendi, dropped deep to receive the ball. McAllister was focused on Odegaard and was ready to jump on him as soon as he got space, while Gravenberch did a great job tracking Rice and stopping him from receiving the ball in central areas. Out wide, our wingers dropped deep to help out defensively, and you can see that clearly with Gakpo here as he follows Timber all the way back into our own third to cut off that threat. Now, this approach had 2 clear sides to it. On the positive side, it stopped Arsenal from having a completely free player operating between or behind our lines. Both Frimpong and Gakpo regularly dropped into the back line to track runners, which helped limit Arsenal's threat, especially out wide where they usually do most of their damage. This made it much harder for them to find easy gaps or overload in dangerous areas. However, the downside was that this setup naturally gave Arsenal a lot of the ball. Because we pressed with fewer players higher up the pitch, they were able to circulate possession more comfortably. This was also one of the main reasons we ended up being pushed back for large parts of the first half. With almost 5 of our players man-marking their direct opponents, Arsenal relied heavily on rotations to drag our players out of position and pin them into place. This created space between the lines and, more importantly, opened up space for their centre-backs to step forward with the ball. For example, you can see Wirtz here being pulled away by Zubimendi, while Hincapié pins Frimpong back. As a result, Gabriel was left with plenty of time and space to carry the ball forward. On top of that, Timber occupies the opposite half space, which pins Gakpo deeper and isolates Saka against Kerekes. That is exactly the type of 1-against-1 situation Arsenal were looking to create, and it shows how their rotations were designed to stretch us and exploit those moments whenever they could. However, as we all saw in this game, Arsenal failed to create almost anything of real note despite having most of the dominance in the first half. One of the main reasons for this was that even when they managed to create space between our lines, they rarely looked to actually use it. Instead, they kept choosing to move the ball around our block rather than trying to play through it. A big part of that was down to how well our players blocked passing angles and denied access through the middle, even when those spaces briefly opened up. But it was also a reflection of Arteta's risk-averse approach, where his side always seems more comfortable playing around the opposition rather than taking chances through the centre. By having his fullbacks move into central areas, it actually made it even harder for Arsenal to play centrally, even when the opportunity was there. And as for Saka, while he did have one or two decent moments in the first half, Kerekes did more than enough to keep him quiet and completely limit the effectiveness of Arsenal's overall approach. That said, Kerekes should not be the only player getting praise for his performance. Gravenberch arguably produced one of his best displays of the season, especially after the break. One of the main reasons we looked like a better side coming out on the second half was his ability to resist and break through Arsenal's pressure, which allowed us to keep the ball and actually move up the pitch with purpose. The sequence here led to our most dangerous chance of the entire game. You can see Gravenberch driving forward with the ball, and even with Martinelli right on him, he uses his body brilliantly to shield it, keep possession, then turn and play the ball forward. From there, Frimpong is played in behind, and if his final pass had been a bit better, we would probably be sitting here talking about how we left the Emirates with all 3 points. So to wrap things up, this was a performance that deserves a lot more respect than it has been given. Going away from home with no natural forwards available, against a side that many people call the best team in Europe, and still coming out looking like the better team says a lot about the players' ability and mentality. Sure, this was not a perfect display by any means. In fact, one could argue that it's one of the worst Big Six games so far this season. But it was a mature and disciplined one, especially after a difficult first half. What impressed us the most was how the team adapted as the game went on. We defended well despite the flaws, stayed patient, and waited for the right moments to step forward. In the second half, we showed more bravery on the ball, moved through their press better, and created the clearest chances of the game. If we were just a bit sharper in the final third, this could have easily been a win rather than a draw. There were also some standout individual performances that deserve credit. Kerekes handled a tough matchup incredibly well. Gravenberch showed real quality in the midfield, and the backline as a whole stayed calm under pressure. Even without our attacking options, the team never lost belief or shape, and that speaks volumes about the work being done behind the scenes. This result might not make the headlines, but performances like this matter over a season. If we keep showing this level of control, discipline, and fight, then we might have some hope to finish this season on a better note. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, we will see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.